Welcome back to Let's Talk Sports Radio right here on 94.9 Bob FM, brought to you by Gino's Pizzeria. Joining me now, the Beast from the UK. He's going to be coming to Cayman Saturday, October 5th for the first ever Strongman competition here in the Cayman Islands. The 2017 World's Strongest Man and the owner of the world's strongest deadlift, Eddie Hall, on the line. Eddie, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. It's great to be chatting with you. You know, it's not very often that I'm able to talk to, a former world's strongest man and, someone who I've seen a lot in the media, and you're a busy man. Tell the listeners a little bit about, I want to kind of educate the listeners on your life, because it's just a very interesting, cool story. Talk when you were growing up. We'll start a little bit with your background. What sports did you play growing up?
Well, when I was a child, my mum was a swimming teacher, and so my two older brothers and myself were sort of forced into swimming. And I think age 5, I was in a swimming club, like the local swimming club. And by age 5, I was training up to 20 hours a week in the water. But be quite obsessed with that. And I think it was more of the obsession of trying to beat your siblings. You always want to beat your siblings in these kind of things. So that became quite obsessive, and I ended up winning the national championships from age 10 to 13, set British records, won the nationals for my age group by a mile, and then on the back of that, I started lifting weights, as part of my swimming training, and it just slowly developed into that. Really, I got into a lot of trouble at school, so I was expelled from high school at a very young age. And it just took over my life. Lifting weights became my void filler. Really, it became my euphoria. Every time I lifted weights and went to the gym, I felt good about myself. So I thought, hey, why not turn this hobby into a goal and try and make it into a profession. I think 19 entered my first strongman contest after years and years of building up, and then I won the world's strongest man at 29 years of age. So 10 years of hard graft, it paid off.
And you're 31 now, yes?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, 31 and into January, 32 next year, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Swimming's very popular in the Cayman Islands. I think people would like to hear, what was your favorite discipline? What was your favorite event in the pool?
So when I was, I believe, 11 years old, it was front crawl, freestyle was my favorite. And I won 50 meters right the way up to 1,500 meters. So I won all distances. I broke British records in the 50 meters and I believe the 400 meters freestyle. There was only good swimmers out there, and I was doing 50 meters in around 23.2 seconds. I was doing 100 meters in about, I think it's 52.8 seconds by the time I was 13. So got some really good times under my belt from when I was a kid. Obviously, I couldn't swim anywhere near that fast now.
Well, there might be some kids here in Cayman that might want to challenge you. I might have to take you by one of the pools here.
Yeah, I tell you what, that'd be a good laugh. I seriously, I'm body weight now. I'm 380 pounds, and I can still swim 50 meters in 26 seconds. So I can still surprise a lot of people.
I bet that would be a good one. Let me ask you this: so you finish up swimming. Obviously, you get expelled from high school. Was it just a seamless transition? Did you just quit swimming and then start picking up weights? How did you decide you didn't want to swim anymore and you wanted to start bodybuilding and, I think even myself, everybody remembers their first gym pass, the guy, the people that signed him up to their first gym. What was that transition like, kind of giving up on swimming and kind of going to bodybuilding?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a unique story, really. I was the best swimmer in the country for my age by an absolute mile. I was on the junior sort of Olympic squad, what they call the World Class Potential Squad. So, I was on a path to be the next Olympic champion. And I fell out with the head coach of the swimming team and said some things I shouldn't have said. So my swimming career fell flat. I was then expelled from school. I managed to get a girl pregnant when I was young, like 13 years of age. And my nan was actually diagnosed with cancer all at the same time. And I went into quite a dark, deep depression, suffered with anxiety. and whatever else. And this went on for 18 months, taking Prozac, seeing psychiatrists. And it wasn't until I was about, 14, getting up to 15, that I decided to go to the gym on the advice of my parents. And every time I went to the gym, I felt better about myself. I got a sense of euphoria. And I suppose that became my obsession, because it made me feel good. I carried it on. So every day I went to the gym, did that from age 14 up until sort of 19. And I think I got to 19 years of age. I realized that not only was I the strongest guy in the gym, looking on YouTube and Facebook and whatever else, I realized that I was one of the strongest guys in the country. So I entered my first strongman contest. I think I came fifth out of about 30 guys, and I just got the bite for it. And I remember that day when I was 19, when I did that contest, I came back, I put it on my Facebook, I told my friends, my family, I'm going to be the world's strongest man one day, watch this space. And I suppose setting that goal was my void filler. It was something that kept me busy, kept me focused, stopped me diving into this dark, deep depression, and kept me moving forward in life.
What was the first workout that Eddie Hall did in his first visit to the gym? Did you go straight for the pec deck? Did you go for the barbell? What did you do? Because you're new to bodybuilding and lifting weights. You walk in the gym.
Yeah.
We've all seen those guys. They go straight for the bench. What did you do in your first workout?
I believe, I was inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger to go to the gym. So, looking at I had pictures of Arnie up on the wall, the Terminator and all his sort of posing pictures and everything else. And I suppose I wanted to look like Arnie. And the thing that stuck out the most of Arnold Schwarzenegger was his biceps. It was a huge, bulging biceps. So I think that's the very first workout I ever did, was walk into the gym, pick up some dumbbells, and do some bicep curls. I believe it or not, I think the benching and the squatting and deadlifting came probably months after that.
So was there a person in the gym, a trainer or maybe like another bodybuilder in the gym that kind of guided you? Or are you kind of a self-taught bodybuilder? Like, when did you start to kind of see gains and start to realize that you can't just do curls and stuff? Like you said, squats came after. What was a turning point? Because a 15-year-old kid in the gym, I don't think, it's a little bit easier now. You can go on YouTube and watch 1,000 bodybuilders. They give you your diet. They give you their chest day. How did you navigate through your early years in the gym to see gains?
So, I was pretty lucky, lucky in some ways, unlucky in others. It's not big and it's not clever to get expelled from school, but for me, it threw me in the deep end because, as you're right, I started going to the gym on my own, trial and error. And then, some of the older guys in the 20s, 30s, 40s, been powerlifting, doing strongman for numerous years, sort of said, what are you doing, pal? Come train with us. We'll show you how to train properly. And pretty much from probably 2 months into training, from 13, I had guys showing me how to squat, how to bench, how to deadlift, how to do programming, how often to train. So, I'll happily hold my hands up and say, I was mentored by quite a few guys in the gym at a very young age. And I suppose being taught the fundamentals, and I remember, I got to like 16, 17, I just went off on my own. I went through all this trial and error. I did what worked for me. People would tell me things, I would try them, and then if it didn't work for me, I'd do my own thing. So mainly over the years, since I was like 17, I've never had any mentoring, I've had no coaching, I've had a nutritionist. It's all been get your head down, trial and error. If you want to learn something, get your nose into a book and learn it. You want to learn how the muscles work, how nutrition works. You've got to learn it yourself.
What about your weight? Obviously, you're an enormous guy. I think your highest weight is way over 400, about 410 or so. Correct me if I'm wrong. But when you're 15 years old, how much did you weigh? And then you talk about these early years, 2008, you started working out, and then 2010, I'm pretty sure you 2011, you finished as the UK's strongest man. What was your big growth spurt? Like, what did you weigh, in your early years, 2008, and what did you get to in those early years when you won that first strongman competition in 2011 over that 3 years? Like, what was your weight fluctuation?
Right. Well, every single year I've been alive, I have put 14 pounds in body weight on.
It's crazy.
So when I was 10 years old, I was 140 pounds. When I was 11 years old, plus 14, 12 years old, plus 14. So I guess when I was 15 years old, just quick maths in my head, I think it was something like 200 pounds, maybe 210 pounds at 15. And it's just been a very slow, natural progression. I've always put 14 pounds a year on, traditionally. I got up to 440 pounds when I won the World's Strongest Man. That was my absolute biggest. I think truthfully, I think it was 433 pounds at my absolute biggest.
That's crazy.
And that was when I was 29 years old. And it's just been a very slow progression. I've lost since then. I've lost, I think, 60 pounds. I got down to about 350 at one point, and I think I'm back up to 380 pounds right now. So it's been a juggle the last couple of years with my body weight, and I'm just finding that balance between strength, fitness, and health.
Yeah, it's interesting because do you have like a big family, or like where does because you're also quite tall. You're 6'3", yes?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm the tallest in the family. I suppose I was sprouted out from somewhere out the blue. My dad's 6'2". My brothers are around about 6 foot. So I've been pretty lucky. I had good genes. I've actually done a DNA test in the last few years, and I've got a gene. Have you ever seen the Belgian blue cows, like the cows with muscles on muscles on muscles? Have you seen them?
Yeah, I might. I think I might. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so those cows have a gene. It's the MSTN gene, and basically it's a hormone that stops them. It doesn't know when to stop putting muscle onto the body frame. So, and I've got the type 2 gene of that. So I've got the MSTN gene type 2, and it basically means I can just hold a lot more muscle mass than any normal person. So, and it's a super rare gene. It's actually called the Hercules gene, and I'm very blessed to have had this gene, and I think that's why I've always excelled at sports. I've always everything I put my head to, I've dominated. Strength sports, swimming. And I'm sure if I put my nose into other sports, I would do very well.
So let me ask you this. You're 15 years old, you invest a few years, 3 years, I believe in 2011 is when you won the UK strongman competition. So that would make you 18 years old when you won your first, like your notable strongman, yes? At 18?
No. So I was born in 1988. So 2011, I would have been 21, 22, 20. I was 23 years old when I won the UK Strongest Man. I believe I was the youngest person ever to have won it. So, it was a very fast-track career. I actually won England's Strongest Man at 22. UK's at 23. I think I won Britain's when I was 25. And then obviously won the World's Strongest Man at 29.
So you walk into that first real strongman competition with the one where you finished first in 2011. That's your first. It looks like sounds like you had done a few other smaller competitions, but you walk into that big one, the UK Strongest Man, and what's the scene like? What's the atmosphere like? You're kind of the new guy on the scene. You got a bunch of other big lifters in there. What was your mentality going into these things now that you had invested, a number of years into the sport, your body, the training, one of your big competitions? What was it like? Kind of set the scene for us.
So I remember my very first big contest, and that was the UK Strongest Man 2011. And, I'd done the networking, I'd done the rounds in the strongman scene. I'd won England's Strongest Man, but hadn't really got noticed. I hadn't got noticed enough to be invited to the World's Strongest Man. And I remember going into the UK's 2011, and I put a status on Facebook, and the status said, "I cannot wait for next week when I get handed that trophy at UK Strongest Man." And I suppose that was me all over. The confidence I had going into these shows was through the roof. I almost taught myself mentally. It was a lot of self-meditation, self-belief, and I suppose that it was the training to back it up. And I was always known for that. I was always known for being quite arrogant and confident, but I always delivered. So that arrogance and confidence, turned into success. it was it's something I'm actually very proud of. I was the Conor McGregor of strongman in essence. I'd shout and bawl, but I would always back up my bull.
I like that. You're the Conor McGregor of strongmen. You actually asked.
Yeah.
You have there was a question there that you reminded me of. At what point in your I probably know the answer to this, but I would like to hear it from you. At what point in your career did things start to change where you woke up one day and you had a trillion notifications on your cell phone, people that you didn't know calling you? You start walking around maybe the UK, and obviously you're a notable person. When did things start to change for you? When you went from a relatively unknown to wow, like things have changed. You're a superstar. When did that happen?
I think, brutally honest, I think it was a very gradual thing. I won the UK Strongest Man in 2011, and I won it every year since. So, I've had that sort of that prime time on TV at Christmas. The Strongman airs on TV at Christmas. I've done all the TV interviews, the radio interviews. I've done a hell of a lot of networking, always getting my face out there, taking all the jobs I could. And I just think it's just been a gradual build-up, It doesn't feel to me as though I've gone into a big game show like Big Brother or something and come out a superstar. It doesn't feel like that. It feels as though I've built up my own fame, my own brand very slowly over the time. And now it's got to the point where it's everywhere, I'm being pulled all angles, getting TV show offers, movie offers. And I suppose it's just from years and years and years of input and effort, and it slowly pays off. And I suppose what worked for me personally was building up a brand. I was nicknamed the Beast by Arnold Schwarzenegger himself, and I embedded that into my brand. I became the Beast, and the audience loved it. They love. It's like the wrestling. The Undertaker and Kane and people like that. They're not the real names. They're brands. And the audience get involved in those brands and follow the storylines. And I suppose that's what I was through my strongman career. I was a brand. I was a storyline for people to watch and follow.
So let's go to 2017, World's Strongest Man. So obviously you've had a really good run, 3 years in a row as Britain's Strongest Man. And, from 2011 to 2016, you're the UK Strongest Man. 2017 comes. In 2016, you finish third. You go into the 2017 World's Strongest Man, and I think it's in the last few years, strongman, in part because social media, the popularity has grown. You've got right now, there's probably more, but 3 really big names in strongman right now. Yourself, Brian Shaw, and the Mountain, Hafthor Bjornsson. So walk me through the 2017 strongman. You're dominating your region, you're dominating your country. You finished third the previous year. Walk us through 2017. What was different? And what did you do different? What was the event like? Because first and third were separated by 3 points. So it was a pretty close contest all the way through. Walk us through that competition where you ultimately won the World's Strongest Man.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the points, you could say it was a close contest. But if you actually watch the show, I won it by a mile. I went into 2017. I believe is the best condition I've ever been in my life. I also believe that I walked into that contest as the strongest man in history. I was unbeatable. No one could touch me on static events. I would out press, out squat, out deadlift any man on that planet on that given day. And I suppose that was showcased so well on the static. I won all the static events, and I fared quite well on the moving events. And there were a couple of events where I actually walked away early. I didn't have to give it my all. For instance, on the Viking press, I had to do 15 reps to win the event. I still had 10 seconds left on the clock, and I put the apparatus down and walked away. I won the squat by 2 reps. And I believe I won the max deadlift by 12 kilos. So it was a very, if you look at the points, it looks close, but honestly, it wasn't. It really wasn't. I was the strongest man that day, and there was no arguing that whatsoever. I think the lead up to that, what made it so special was my obsessiveness with being the strongest man in the world. Because in 2016, as you know, I bust my fingers. I dislocated my fingers in my left hand, and I still managed to come third on that same event. And from 2016 to 17, I just became that obsessed with being the strongest man in the world. I lived it. I breathed it. It was my life. I didn't have one day off. My regime was, religious. I would get up at 3 a.m. to eat. I would get up at 7 a.m. to eat. I'd go back to bed. I would get up again at 9 a.m. to eat. I'd go back to bed. I'd get up and do physio at 11 a.m. for an hour and a half. I would then eat again for dinner, and then I'd go back to bed. I would get up at 3:30 and have a second dinner. I would go to the gym for 5 hours. I would then come back, eat, go to another gym, do my hot and cold, do my stretching, do all those sort of things. And then I'd come home, I would eat again, and then I would climb into a hyperbaric chamber, which is like a pressurized chamber where you breathe oxygen. And I would climb into my chamber, and I would spend an hour and a half in there every single night. And, I'd crawl out just after midnight, get into bed, and do the same again every single day, Monday to Sunday, 365 days a year. There was no let off. And I remember in the contest in 2017 is whether I came first, second, third, or last. It wouldn't have made a difference in my head, because, I'll put it this way, if I'd have come second, I couldn't have stood there and said, oh, well, I missed a meal 2 weeks ago, or I missed a session 6 months ago, and that's why I didn't win it. I couldn't have said that, because I didn't. I didn't miss one meal, one session, one stretching, one physio. I was absolutely military precision for 365 days. And I suppose that's what I can stand there and say is I tried harder and I gave my all over anybody else there. So if it comes second, I still could have stood there and said I tried harder than anybody else. And I know that in my head.
You must have been doing 5,000 calories a day or more, or what was your at your peak? Obviously, you're kind of bulking all year round, and then in contest season, you probably crank it up a bit. What was your calorie count? What was your diet like? What were you eating?
Well, I actually did a study with a university once where they test your anabolic rate, and they do it through carbon dioxide oxygen exchange. And they worked out if I was to sit in a chair for 12 hours and do absolutely nothing, I'd burn 4,900 calories.
That's crazy.
So, exactly. So on top of that, you've got day-to-day life, you've got walking about, you've got taking the kids to school, doing the shopping, and then you've got to add training onto that. And then with strength training, you've also got to add the recovery calories. When you're sleeping, your body's working twice as hard, building muscles. So you're burning sort of 500-600 calories an hour in your sleep. In the lead up to 17, I was doing, on average, 12,500 calories a day.
That's insane.
Sometimes up to 15,000.
And you see guys online, all these competitive eaters, even Brian Shaw, they do the 10,000 calorie challenge. That's crazy because before you even lift a finger, your body was burning 4,500. So if you were doing on a 5,000 calorie diet, not to even include your workouts, you would have been at a caloric deficit. So your meals, you must have been doing full steaks, like pounds of ground beef, tons of rice. What kind of stuff were you eating?
Yeah, exactly that. I was such a huge body weight. I was 433 pounds. I tried my best to eat healthy, but in order to get the 12,500 calories in, I must admit, there was a hell of a lot of cheesecake, a hell of a lot of ice cream. So it was always like, eat a good meal. So eat your meat, eat your vegetables, eat your carbs. And then it would be, for pudding would be half a pound of cheesecake and a liter of ice cream, and that's probably, I was doing that 3 times a day, having those sort of treats to up the calories, and I had to. There's no way you can get 12,500 calories into your system via chicken and rice. It's just impossible.
Mm. Who's making these meals for you?
Well, I'm a full-time athlete, so my wife always did the evening meals, but I'd always feed myself from morning to the evening. So it was just a case of having to teach myself to cook and doing a hell of a lot of eating out, even working with prep companies, to send me food. So it was just a mixture of everything, really. But I spent a lot of time in the kitchen, a couple hours a day cooking food for myself.
And you sound like a self-motivated guy. That's a lot of time, spent, a lot of the same, kind of tedious routines. When you got to do the same thing over and over again, what about costs? Like, you're an athlete, you're a professional athlete. At what point do you have help with the food? Did you have a food sponsor? Because this is 12,000 calories a day. That's kind of a lot of food. I can imagine you're spending thousands of pounds on, to fuel your body. Yes. How did you make it work?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite lucky. When I first quit my job and went pro, I had a lot of savings in the bank. I sold a big security business. I, saved up a lot of money from my work. And then it was just, basically sponsors paid the bills. I also did, obviously, the competitions I was winning brought in a lot of money. The 500 kilo brought in a lot of money. And I suppose when you break it down, and I did break it down once when I was at my biggest, I was spending £300 a week on food, £300 a week on physiotherapy, another £250 to £300 on other recovery methods like chirotherapy and shockwave treatments. I think all in, I was spending at least sort of £800 a week on my body. £4,000 a month just to be as big and strong as I was. So it was a costly career, but I always got it back tenfold, through the prize money, through the sponsors. So I always saw it as an investment.
I mean, it's just a very grueling sport, to have to physically eat that much food and to train, you're doing power, you're doing heavy lifts, deadlifts, squats. That's hard stuff on your joints. And you sound like a very self-motivated guy, as you've mentioned multiple times. Was there ever any dark periods where you're like, I just can't do this. I can't eat another packet of ground beef or another cheesecake. Not that that is the worst thing, to eat a full cheesecake just to get you to a baseline of calories. But did you ever have dark moments where you just were like, I can't do this anymore. I just wanted to live a regular life? Or how did you kind of deal with, the ups and more so the downs?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite lucky, really. When I was 19, I made a huge promise to my nan on a deathbed that I would actually become the world's strongest man. And from the day I made that promise, there was no way I was going to let it down, So that was my motivation. And then during that period, my kids came along, I met my wife, and they just added to that motivation. I don't want my kids. I grew up very poor, seen poverty for myself. I've seen my mum and dad cry over bills. I've seen them get upset when, thinking they're going to lose the house and, they can't put fuel in the car. I've seen it from my own eyes. And I don't want that to happen to my children. And I suppose that's my motivation is, I want to build up a lifestyle for my kids to sort of have a nest egg almost. And I don't want them to be spoiled. I want to teach them the values. I want them to go out and work for a living and whatever else. But, I don't want them to be exposed to that coldness. And it's a very harsh sort of reality in our country is, people struggle all over the country. Minimum wage is terrible. Unemployment's terrible. The drugs and crime is terrible. And it happens all over the world. And I suppose that was my motivation to make sure I don't get dragged into that world.
And I had put on our social media that I was going to interview the Beast Eddie Hall. People were commenting, can't wait to hear this. Is one of my heroes. Do you feel that you are, a hero? And do people reach out to you, social media or, back home in the UK and, share their stories? Because you seem like a very affable guy. You seem like, you're a beast of a man, but you seem like a very relatable guy. How has, your celebrity and your success as a strongman, how have you been able to translate that into, helping and connecting people that you inspire? Because, it's rags to riches story. And, you seem like a guy that's worked hard for everything in his life. How has that part of your career kind of been fulfilling and connecting with people who idolize you and kind of look up to you for what you've accomplished?
Well, first and foremost, I have to sit down and take a crap like everybody else. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do. We're all the same. And I suppose that's why I'm so relatable. As you say, I wouldn't say I've quite come from rags, but, I've had a very hard upbringing, and I've had to work for every pound that I've got in the bank. And I suppose it's that Rocky story, It's that guy that works the hardest, that you put all that hard work and dedication in, you can do anything in life. And, I was inspired by somebody like I was inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was inspired by a man called Reg Park, and I've had that effect on other people, and it's a massive knock-on effect of inspirational people that change people's lives. And I suppose I'm very humble and very privileged to be a part of that process. I was inspired to go out and win the world's strongest man, and my doing so has inspired probably millions of people to go out and achieve goals in life. Even to get out and go to the gym and get fit and healthy, or to talk to people about the depression. It doesn't matter. It's being a part of that process is a great feeling, and I feel as though me giving back to the people and talking about the depression, talking about the struggles, talking about coping mechanisms of how to get on with your life. I feel it's a real great humbling feeling to be able to do this.
You've mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger as your hero, Terminator posters on the wall. Set the stage. What was it like? When did you first meet Arnold, and what did you guys talk about? And did he exceed your expectations? Are you guys friends? Tell me a little bit about that interaction.
So, Arnold's always been a hero of mine. I've grown up in the mesmeration of Arnold. Met Arnold a few times in and out of competition, and then it got to the Melbourne Arnold Classic where I was asked to pull a world record deadlift, and I got onto that bar at 11 a.m. in the morning, rocking a world record deadlift back and forward. Arnold was meant to be there watching. He didn't turn up, so I just said, sod it, I'm getting cold, I've got to do this lift now. And as I was rolling this bar back and forward, started to lift, Arnold Schwarzenegger rocked up by my right-hand side and started cheering me on to do this deadlift, and thank God I did. Threw that weight down and give Arnold the old Predator handshake, had a quick chat, and I suppose the relationship started there. Really, we bumped into each other quite a few times since, and but we're actually talking about a few business deals together of late. So, to meet, that was one of my life goals, was to win the world's strongest man, do the world record deadlift, and meet Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, in terms of my goals that I set from when I was 19, I've achieved them. And now I have. It's resetting those goals, and I suppose Arnold has inspired me to do that. He's inspired me to reset those goals like he did. He set goals to win the Olympia, and then he set goals to get into movies, and then he set goals to get into politics, and he just keeps achieving, and he keeps resetting. So that's why Arnold's always been my hero. He's one of these guys that just proves to you that hard work and dedication pays off, and he's the American dream.
How many times have you watched Pumping Iron? I've watched it a dozen.
I've watched Pumping Iron quite a few times, and when I do watch it, it does remind me of myself, very much so. And seeing a younger Arnold act and be the way he was very. It was kind of weird to watch because it was very, very relatable to myself. Going through the competitions, being that arrogant kid, being that cocky, confident guy, but then backing it up. Arnold was the Conor McGregor of bodybuilding back in the day. He said it ludicrous things, but he backed it up, and that's why I became so sort of mesmerized and obsessed with Arnold. It's
like Lou Ferrigno's dad says, "You're the king of kings, Arnold. You're the king of kings." It's that iconic line from that movie.
Yeah, that's it.
Your deadlift. You're the world record holder in strongman rules, 1,102.31 pounds, set in 2016. The Cayman Islands is fitness, and it's fitness central. People love sports fitness here. Walk us through that lift. What does it take to do a good deadlift, let alone lift over 1,000 pounds?
So the lift was, as you know, if you're into the sport, you know how crazy it was. He's beating the world record by 8%. It's like Usain Bolt taking nearly a second off the world record 100 meters. It's just unheard of. To be able to do that lift was, when I set off on the journey, I realized how ridiculous it was. I got into the gym. I set the goal in 2015, and I got into the gym, and it took me 6 months to sort of realize I can't get anywhere near it. So I took a step back, sort of reevaluated what I've got to do. And it was basically a trick of the mind. It was a scientist that sat me down one day and explained to me that there's no way you're going to be able to pull that because you can't get the muscle fibers to get involved. A day-to-day person doing the shopping, picking the kids up from school, probably uses 50% of the muscle fibers. Somebody that trains 20 hours a week probably has at most access to 65% of the muscle fibers. But then you get a mother who's been in a car crash and can lift the car off her kids, and has access to 100% of the muscle fibers. And that was basically explained to me as a flight or fight scenario. You get this huge rush of adrenaline and you do things that you can't humanly normally do. And that was the scenario I had to put myself in. I worked with psychiatrists, I worked with hypnotherapists, and I was able to, when I got strapped onto that bar, I was able to do a pinch point where it would put me in a zone where I can't talk about what I was thinking about, but it put me in a zone, in layman's terms, where I wasn't lifting that bar off the floor. I was lifting a car off of my kids. And that was the only way I was able to do that lift. The most I've ever done in training is 454 kilos. The most I've ever done in a competition before that was 463. I've never done it since, and I don't ever want to do it again. It was an absolute, crazy thing to do. And looking back, it was very stupid. But, I get asked the question, would I go back and do it again? And the answer is yes. And I'd probably add another 10 kilos on the bar. Amazing.
What do you think the biggest mistake or the biggest trend, or what's something about fitness these days? Because, there's many ways to stay fit, get lean, get big, bulk up. What's the one thing that irks you right now in today's sports and fitness world that you don't agree with, that you think maybe people are doing it wrong, or you don't agree with the methodology?
Well, I see a hell of a lot of people these days coming in the gym, working their arse off, and then they don't do it. They don't go away, they don't eat properly, they don't do the nutrition, they don't recover. And I think that's where I differed from the rest of the competition is I trained just as hard as them. I put just as much effort in. But then when it came to the home time, the recovery, I went above and beyond what any other athlete would do. I bought my own hyperbaric chamber. I bought hot and cold tubs. I bought saunas, steam rooms, all for at home, just so I could nail my recovery. And I suppose the sort of general population just doesn't relate. They think you can just go and lift weights and grow muscles. It's far from it. You've got to get the proteins in, you've got to get the aminos in, you've got to stretch, you've got to foam roll, you've got to relax, you've got to learn how to recover. You can't go into a gym and bench press 200 kilo every week and expect to get stronger. You've got to go away and do your homework. And I think that's a big problem with the industry right now is they just go in, they work out however way they want, and they follow stupid people off YouTube and all these gurus on Instagram that know absolutely nothing, and they expect results. And obviously they're not getting any results.
So the second phase of your life, your career has begun. You are retired, yes?
Yes, semi-retired, but retired from World's Strongest Man for sure.
Where is the career of Eddie Hall going now? Are you talked a little bit about Arnold in Hollywood? Obviously, you're a man that is very castable in terms of terms. We've seen other strongmen and other, use social media. I mentioned Brian Shaw. He's got a humming YouTube channel. You've got Hafthor Bjornsson, who's known to be the Mountain on Game of Thrones. Where is Eddie Hall's career going next?
Well, I've just landed 2 big TV shows, just filmed season 1. We've done The Strongest Man in History for the History Channel. We've got Eddie Eats America for Channel Dave in the UK, and I believe the Food Network out in the States. So, 2 big TV shows landed. Getting into films. I can't talk about the film stuff, but I'm getting into a couple of movies in the next 18 months that's going to go big and wild. And I'm doing all the networking. I'm doing my acting lessons. I'm meeting the agents, I'm meeting the directors and the promoters, and I'm just whirlwinding. I'm just getting stuck in. We're hoping for the best, but like with the strongman, I'm gripping it with 2 hands and I'm working my ass off. I'm working as hard as I possibly can to make a success out of it. How is Hollywood reacting to Eddie Hall so far? Very well. Obviously I get the gasps. I get the directors looking me up and down like, geez, I could use you in a film. So it's been great, and the TV stuff's really kicking off. The History Channel thing's been airing a few weeks now. That's doing really well. My own TV show is yet to air, but I'm sure that's going to be great. So, the reaction's been great, man, and I think because of who I am and my title, I'm front of the queue, if there's 1,000 auditions for a movie, you can pretty much guarantee I'll be on the top of the list because I am the world's strongest man. I've got that I've got that wow factor already.
You're the beast, bro. You're the beast. Let's wrap with this. Saturday, October 5th, Cayman's first ever strongman competition featuring you, sir, the beast, Eddie Hall. How did this come together, and are you excited to come to the Cayman Islands, one of the most bustling tourist destination, top tourist destination in the world, and, you know, just a great place that I've called home for the last 4 years. Excited to be a part of this event. Tell us about it.
Yeah, 100%. I was approached by a gentleman running the event, Tony, and he told me all about it. He told me I was incorporating each event to a different charity, some of them very close to my heart. And I just couldn't turn it down. You know, it's a great opportunity for me to come out and meet the Cayman Island people, explore the island, see what it's all about. You know, as you said, it's the number one destination in the world. I've never been, so I'm just really looking forward to coming along, having a chill, looking forward to meeting all the people, looking forward to the contest, looking forward to the guys sweating it out, lifting those weights to see who's the strongest man in the Cayman Islands. So it's just going to be a fantastic. You know, there's one thing I will say about strongman. It's for the whole family. You know, people think it's not like football or rugby or soccer. It isn't just the guys that turn up and watch. You know, from experience, doing all these shows around the world. It's mom, dad, it's grandma, granddad, it's brothers, sisters, it's the kids, the babies. Everyone comes. It's just such a relatable thing. And I think what it is, you know, human nature can't help but be mesmerized by strength. You know, it's been held in high regard since time began. You know, all the Hercules and Atlas and people like that. You know, strength will always be admired and fascinated upon.
And, you know, I can tell you one thing, Cayman is excited to meet you. We're going to have to break bread, sir, because I am the number one competitive eater in the Cayman Islands, and I know that you like to put back some of the calories. I seen your video online with Beard Meats Food, so we're going to have to break bread when I see you, my man. Is that a deal or what?
That sounds good. You line up the stakes and I'll knock them back.
All right, brother. That's Eddie Hall, the Beast. He's coming here October 5th, 2017, World's Strongest Man. And 2019 best interview right here on Let's Talk Sports Radio. Looking forward to meeting you, and thank you for being so generous with your time, Eddie. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Take care, guys, and I'll see you all soon.
All right, take care, Eddie. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jordan.
That's it for Let's Talk Sports Radio. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. Brought to you by Gino's Pizzeria. For Hurley's Media, I'm a sports guy in a boat. I'm a sports guy in a boat. I'm a sports guy in a boat.